When it comes to the turning point, it sounds like it wasn't one seminal moment. It sounds like it was just things that happened along the way that led you down to a point where you realized something had to change. If you can remember back, can you remember what the first inkling you had was that maybe this wasn't a good match and maybe there was something off or something different or something, I don't want to say wrong because it really wasn't wrong, but something off and there was a mismatch.
Okay, the other thing that I should add into the picture is that the person that I hired had formerly been one of my coaching clients. So there was that dimension to the relationship as well, which did have its downside because I probably, when there was slippage on time and what have you, I wasn't as hard on it. What I should say in their favour is that I'm a perfectionist. And so part of the reason that the setup and of the website and that phase took so long is the degree to which it didn't feel right and we were trying to get there. What I've learned with hindsight is that we'd never get there because the fundamental differences are so major. If that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it makes perfect sense, and I'm laughing, folks. Through setting up the show, I can vouch for Dennis. He's a perfectionist, and that's a good thing. And the reason I say it's a good thing is because when you work with him and his company, it means they're going to take the time to make sure everything is right. Perfectionism gets a bad rep sometimes for people who know they're perfectionists and can identify it and understand it. It can be such a powerful force. It's the people who don't want to admit they're perfectionists that you've got to watch out for. Anyway, I get off my soapbox. I digress. So, part of what you started to find out, or part of what you figured out in this turnaround period and in the aftermath, and we'll talk about the aftermath in a couple of minutes, but part of what you figured out about this turnaround period was that you took responsibility. Can I ask you a very personal question about that? When you took responsibility, that it was that part of it was lied on your shoulders for being a perfectionist. May I ask you a personal question on that?
Absolutely.
How did it feel when you took that responsibility? Did it feel good? Did it feel bad? Did it feel freeing? Did you remember how it felt when you took that responsibility?
Yeah, I mean, that responsibility occurred when I encountered the work of Wallace D. Wattles. So it wasn't just something that involved me, it's something that involved a very powerful connection. And actually, it was the powerful connection that was energizing, that, underpinned taking the responsibility, which in turn felt really, really good. Because obviously, as things were sliding downhill, my biggest fear was that I wasn't going to be able to turn the situation around.
Yeah.
And
Now,
slipping further and further into negativity on the one hand, on the other hand, getting more and more deeply immersed in abundance.
yeah. Now, here's another question for you. Do you think you'd ever been able to turn it around if you didn't take responsibility for at least the piece of the issue and the challenge that was yours?
The answer to that is no. And what I'm trying to do in this interview is saying that, okay, although there was a mismatch, I'm also trying to take responsibility for the elements of that mismatch that were down to me.
Well, and I bring that up because for those of you watching at home or listening, maybe record this and listen in your car or something. What Dennis said right there is worth gold, because until you take responsibility for the pieces of a situation that are yours, not for the whole thing. You don't have to. You're not a martyr. You're not putting you're not Atlas with the world, and you're not the martyr with the oh geez, I need to go work out, man. It's not good, Dennis, to do this if you got no muscle. So I've just that my pool of eligible women just shrunk because I'm single. But that's besides the point. Who knows? Maybe by the time this airs, I won't be. But anyway, that's besides the point. The point is that you don't have to take responsibility for everything. Just take responsibility for what you're responsible for. And it's such a freeing experience and such a freeing thing. So you mentioned Wallace D. Wattles and epic. I mean, it's kind of a epic author, and I almost can't even talk. I got to get back to a question here. So during this turnaround period, you started to take responsibility and you started to realize that things might be mismatched. But one of the other things I heard you say was you used a previous client as now a partner or a resource. Do you think you had any blinders on because they were a previous client and maybe looked past some of the warning signs that this was out of sync?
Yes, it was a more difficult relationship. It was a more complex relationship. The roles had switched. Obviously, I had mixed feelings about being too demanding. It would have been a much cleaner relationship if I'd chosen someone completely different. It still wouldn't have changed all the fundamental mismatches between sales and marketing, but at a personal level, obviously that was the key part of the situation. And, it was messy and it did impact on our relationship. And obviously part of the real challenge was to resolve the situation and come out of it in a way that to at least to some extent preserve the relationship, but unfortunately there has been some cost to the relationship.
Yeah, and the interesting part, and the reason I ask that question, and the reason I bring that up is because a lot of times when we use people close to us or we use ex-clients as providers, we need to be overly cautious and overly careful of not letting things completely go that are going to damage what we're trying to do. And we tend to do that because they're friends of ours, because we don't want to hurt them. We don't want to see them feel bad, especially living in an abundance mindset and living in a positive mindset. You want to give everybody the benefit of the doubt, right, Dennis?
Sure, and I think that it's, how can I put it, it's not, take it out of any kind of blame frame. Nobody was at blame. It was nobody's fault. It was just a learning journey. What then becomes the issue is how you manage yourself in that learning journey, how you manage your responsibilities. And part of managing responsibilities as well is letting go of control, which I think is really key. So it's a delicate balance between being responsible and not trying to control the situation.
Yeah, epic. Once again, another piece of gold right there. Accepting responsibility, but not feeling like you have to be in complete control. And this really leads us into the next part, which is the aftermath. So when it comes to the aftermath, you started to realize there was this mismatch, and unfortunately, the person, and I'll say unfortunately because it created another layer. You had an ex-client, so so there was a bigger challenge. Um, when you Once you hit that rock bottom and you started on the upslope, do you remember what either the first or one of your early actions did after you hit rock bottom to start coming back on the upswing?
To watch the rest of this epic episode now, click on the link below the video. Do it now, you'll be glad you did. Are you still here? What are you waiting for? Watch the rest of this epic episode now by clicking on the link below the video.